There is a version of you that remembers what it felt like to wake up and want the day, not with excitement, necessarily. Just wanting it, feeling like the morning belonged to you, like your life was something you were living, not something you were managing. And somewhere between then and now, that feeling grew quieter. The days filled up, the years moved fast, and you kept going because that is what you do, but something beneath the going began to ask a question you did not quite have words for yet. Is this still enough? Am I still enough? And how much longer can I carry all of this? You are not broken for asking. You are paying attention. Today we walk together through 10 teachings that Buddhism has held for more than 2,000 years, not as rules, not as a plan, as a way of seeing the body, the mind, the life that addresses not just how long you live, but the quality of every breath between now and then. Your rest, your grief, your stillness, the reason you open your eyes each morning. Stay with me until teaching number 6. What you hear there may change the way you understand the relationship between what you have carried emotionally and what your body has been quietly absorbing, in a way that may finally give language to something you have felt for a long time, but could not name. Now, breathe, and let these words find you. I want to be honest with you before we go further. I am not a doctor. I am not a monk. I am someone who has spent years sitting with these teachings, reading them, returning to them, letting them work on me slowly. What I share here is not medical advice. It is an invitation to look at your life through a gentler and perhaps wiser lens. Please bring your own discernment, and if something resonates, hold it. If something does not, let it pass. There is a reason you arrived at this point in life feeling heavier than you expected. And it is not weakness. It is what happens when a person spends years listening to everyone's needs except their own. You were taught that rest was laziness, that slowing down was giving up, that your worth lived in how much you produced, how much you endured, how thoroughly you disappeared into the service of others. Buddhism sees this differently. The body remembers what the mind tried to move past. And today is not about discipline. It is about returning to yourself, to your body, to a life that still has time left to be lived with care. Teaching 1, the mind, is the first medicine. There is an old understanding in Buddhism that illness does not begin in the body. It begins in the mind that will not rest. Think about that for a moment. Not the dramatic clinical definition of illness, the quieter kind, the chronic fatigue that arrives without clear cause, the tension that lives between your shoulder blades, the digestive trouble that flares when life feels out of control, the headaches that come on the days you have pushed past every reasonable limit and kept going anyway. Your body is not malfunctioning, it is communicating. The Buddha spoke of 3 fires that burn in the untrained mind: craving, aversion, and delusion. The fire of craving is the mind that is always reaching for more recognition, more security, more certainty about a future that will not hold still. The fire of aversion is the mind that is always resisting this diagnosis, this aging, this chapter of life that looks nothing like what was planned. And the fire of delusion is the mind that keeps pretending everything is fine when the body is quietly telling another story. When these fires burn, without relief, without rest, without stillness, without any moment of genuine emptying, the body begins to pay the bill. Not immediately, not dramatically. Slowly, the way a house settles when its foundation is never tended. Think of a candle left burning in every room, through every night, year after year. It does not burn brighter for the effort. it simply burns out sooner. This is not a metaphor about giving up. It is a teaching about tending. The most radical act of health you can perform today is not a supplement or a protocol. It is giving your mind this faithful, tireless, overworked mind permission to be quiet. Here is a practice you can begin tonight. Before you sleep, ask yourself one question. What was I carrying today that was never mine to carry? Not to solve it, not to analyze it, simply to recognize it, to hold it briefly in the light, and then consciously, gently set it at the door. The body heals in the space that unnecessary weight vacates. The quietest thing you can do for your health is to give your mind permission to rest. Teaching to sleep is not laziness. It is when the body heals itself. Buddhism honors the night as sacred time, not empty time, not wasted time, not the hours you tolerate between one productive day and the next. The night, in the oldest Eastern understanding, is when the deepest restoration occurs, when the body does work that cannot be done in daylight, when the mind processes what the day could not fully hold, when something beneath ordinary consciousness quietly repairs. And yet most of us have spent decades treating sleep as what happens after everything else is finished. After the dishes are done and the children are settled, and the worry has exhausted itself, we lie down not to rest but to finally stop, and then wonder why the stopping does not feel like enough. Consider what you might call the wisdom of non-doing. There is a teaching that runs through Buddhist and broader Eastern thought, the understanding that yielding to natural cycles is not passivity. It is the highest form of intelligence. The river does not argue with its banks. The season does not resist its turning, and the body, when given dark and quiet and enough time, knows exactly what to do. It has always known, we simply keep interrupting it. There is something many people do not realize about sleep and the body's own capacity to heal. The hours before midnight carry a different quality of rest than the hours after. The systems that regulate the body, the ones that quiet inflammation, that consolidate memory, that process emotion, tend to do their deepest work in the early hours of sleep. When we push the night later and later, we are borrowing against a debt the body will eventually collect. Think of a garden after rain compared to a garden in drought. The same soil, the same seeds, the only difference is what was allowed to fall, and when. A garden that never receives rain does not produce less beautiful flowers. Eventually, it stops producing altogether. Your body is that garden, and sleep is the rain it was designed for. One commitment, just one for tonight. In the last hour before bed, set the phone down, not across the room, down and away. Write on a piece of paper the one thing that is circling loudest in your mind, the worry, the unfinished conversation, the thing you do not know how to resolve, and place the paper somewhere out of sight. You are not abandoning it. You are simply telling your nervous system that it does not need to solve anything before morning. Then give your body the dark and the quiet and the time. The most healing thing you may do today happens tonight, in the dark, when you finally stop. Teaching, 3 you are what you have been nourished by, and not only in the kitchen. When Buddhism speaks of nourishment, it is not talking only about food. That is where most of us begin and where many of us stay. We adjust the diet, we read the labels, we make careful choices at the market. And these things matter. They genuinely matter. But the Buddha identified 4 kinds of nutriment, and physical food is only the first. The second is sensory impression, everything that enters through the eyes and the ears and the quality of your attention. The news you consume before breakfast, the conversations that leave you hollowed out, the environments that feel safe versus the ones that keep your nervous system at low hum, all of this is food. All of it is being metabolized by the body, whether you notice or not. The third nutriment is intention, the quality of your own motivation, the why beneath the doing. A meal eaten in resentment nourishes differently than a meal eaten in gratitude. A day built around obligation exhausts differently than a day built around meaning. The inner weather of your life shapes the body just as surely as what is on your plate. And the fourth consciousness itself, the quality of awareness you bring to your own experience, whether you are present for your life or merely managing it from a slight distance. To eat well in the Buddhist sense is to tend all four. So here is an honest question, and I ask it with care, not criticism. When did you last spend an hour in genuine silence, not sleep, not distraction, but chosen quiet? When did you last walk away from a conversation feeling more like yourself than when you entered it? When did you last protect your attention the way you protect your health, saying no to what drains you before it has taken something you cannot get back? When did you last allow yourself to be genuinely nourished? Begin with one meal eaten slowly this week. No screen, no background noise. Just the food and your full presence, and the simple, almost forgotten act of tasting what you are eating. Then ask what else in your daily life might deserve that same quality of care. What you allow shapes what grows within. Choose your nourishment as if your life depends on it, because quietly, slowly, it does. Teaching 4. Rest is not the reward, rest is the practice. Somewhere along the way, you were taught that rest must be earned, that you are allowed to stop only after everything is handled, after the work is done and the family is settled and the obligations have all been met. But everything is never done. The list does not end, and so you never stop, not truly, and the body, patient and faithful and endlessly forgiving, begins to speak in the only language left available to it. Fatigue that does not lift with sleep, a low-grade fog that sits between you and full clarity, an irritability that arrives without warning, a sense quiet but persistent that something is running down. This is not aging. Or not only aging, this is the body asking, with increasing urgency, for the interval it was always designed to have. In the monastic tradition, the day is structured around the rhythm of effort and stillness, not because monks have nothing to do. They have an enormous amount to do, but the ancient teachers understood something that modern productivity culture has spent a century trying to disprove. Wisdom arises in the interval. Insight comes in the pause. The body repairs in the gap between one effort and the next. And without that gap, without the genuine, unproductive, purposeless rest, even the finest instrument eventually falls out of tune. There is a small parable that has stayed with me. A young monk approached his teacher one morning and asked, "When should I rest?" The teacher looked at him for a long moment and then said simply, "When the river rests." The monk was puzzled. He walked to the river and watched it, fast in some places, slow in others, rushing around stones, spreading wide in the shallows, deepening in the quiet bends. And then he understood. The river does not stop, but in the wide, slow places, in the unhurried bends, where the current spreads and gentles, it deepens, it restores, it gathers itself for what comes next. Not by ceasing, by widening. Rest does not mean stopping your life. It means finding the wide, slow places within it. The 10 minutes that belong to no one. The cup of tea finished without a phone nearby. The 5 breaths taken in the garden before the day takes over. These are not indulgences. These are the practices that make everything else sustainable. Rest is not what you do when life permits it. Rest is what makes the rest of life possible. Teaching 5. The body speaks. The question is whether you have learned to listen. Buddhism teaches that the body is not separate from the path to wisdom. It is the path. Every ache, every signal, every morning you rise and notice before thought arrives, before the day begins that something feels different than yesterday. These are not inconveniences. They are information. They are the body doing the one thing it has always done faithfully, even when you were not paying attention, telling the truth. Most of us were not taught to listen to this. We were taught to push through, to take something for the pain and keep moving, to treat the body as a vehicle reliable until it isn't, managed until it breaks, handed to someone else to fix when it finally stops cooperating. But the body is not a machine. It is a living record. Every season of grief that was moved through quickly, every year of too little sleep, every relationship that cost more than it returned, every morning you woke before you were ready and did not let yourself be anything other than fine. All of it is held somewhere in the tissue, in the posture, in the patterns of tension that you have probably stopped noticing because they have been there so long they feel like just the way you are. The Satipatthana Sutta, one of the oldest and most complete Buddhist teachings, instructs the practitioner to dwell in the body, observing it with clarity and without judgment, not to fix it, not to optimize it, simply to know it, to be present to it the way you would be present to someone you genuinely loved, with curiosity rather than criticism, with patience rather than demand. Think of a gardener who tends only the flowers and never the roots. The blooms may look beautiful for a season, but the gardener who does not kneel down and look beneath the surface will always be surprised when the plant begins to wilt. The roots speak first. Always, and they speak quietly, before the wilting begins. Here is a practice that requires nothing except a few seconds and the willingness to arrive. Every morning before the phone, before the coffee, before the first task of the day claims your attention, place one hand over your heart and ask simply and honestly, how are you today? Not how are you performing, not how are you coping. How are you, the real you, the body, the felt sense beneath the functioning? Then listen, not for words, for sensation, for the truth that is already there, waiting to be acknowledged. Your body has been trying to tell you something. Today might be the day you finally stop long enough to hear it. Teaching 6 unhealed grief lives in the body. This is the teaching I want you to hold most carefully, because it may explain something that nothing else has fully explained. Buddhism teaches that what the mind refuses to feel, the body agrees to hold. Read that again, if you will. What the mind refuses to feel, the body agrees to hold. You may have wondered, genuinely wondered, perhaps with some frustration, why you are tired even after rest. Why certain aches return without apparent cause. Why you sometimes carry a heaviness that has no name and no clear origin. Why you can be doing perfectly ordinary things and feel underneath like something is pressing. Modern medicine will look for the answer in the blood work, in the scan, in the measurable data, and sometimes it finds it there, but often it does not. And the person leaves the appointment feeling dismissed, nothing wrong, everything within normal range, while the body continues to speak in a language the instruments cannot read. Buddhism asks a different question. Not what is wrong, but what is being carried, and more specifically, how long have you been carrying it? The Buddha spoke of the two arrows. The first arrow is pain, real, inevitable, human, the loss of someone you loved, the relationship that ended without resolution, the chapter of life that closed before you were ready, the years that passed while you were waiting for things to become what they never became. This pain is the first arrow. It finds everyone. It is part of the price of being alive and loving anything. The second arrow is what we do afterward, the suppression, the I have to be strong, the grief swallowed on behalf of everyone around you who needed you to be fine, the loss that never received its full mourning because there was no time, or no space, or no one who knew how to sit with you in it. The feelings pushed down so many times that eventually the pushing became automatic. You stopped noticing you were doing it at all. The first arrow heals with time. The second arrow, left unattended, does not heal. It settles. There was once a woman who came to a monk after years of unexplained illness. She had seen the doctors. She had followed the guidance, and yet the heaviness remained not dramatic, not debilitating, but persistent. A weight she had learned to carry so long she had almost stopped noticing it was not hers to keep. The monk sat with her in silence for a long time, not asking about symptoms, not offering remedies, simply sitting. Then he asked quietly, "When did you last allow yourself to cry?" She thought for a moment, and then she said, "I don't remember. There was always someone who needed me to be steady. There was never a right time." The monk nodded slowly. "The tears you did not cry," he said, "did not disappear. They simply went somewhere else." She sat with that. And in the sitting, something shifted. Not resolved, grief is not so quickly resolved, but seen, named, allowed at last to be real. This teaching is not asking you to perform grief or manufacture emotion. It is asking you to stop asking your body to perform wellness while carrying weight it was never meant to hold indefinitely. One practice, just one. Identify one grief, one loss, one disappointment, one chapter that closed hard that you have been moving past rather than moving through. You do not need to resolve it today. You simply need to say to yourself, with kindness and without judgment, "This happened, it mattered, I am allowed to feel it." That acknowledgement alone, that simple, honest moment of letting something be true, begins to release the body from the work of containment. The body does not forget, but it forgives the moment you finally stop asking it to pretend. Teaching 7. Move gently. The deepest strength is the quietest kind. Buddhism does not honor force, it honors flow. And this is as true for the body in motion as it is for the mind at rest. The world has told you loudly, repeatedly, with great confidence that strength is built through intensity. That effort must hurt to count, that you should push harder, go further, sweat more, endure longer. And there is a season of life when that approach has its place. But the body at 60 or 70 or 80 is not asking for more force. It has endured enough force. What it is asking for, what it responds to with something that can only be called gratitude, is wisdom, movement that honors what is genuinely available today, effort that works with the body's actual capacity rather than against its age. The Buddha's own discovery, the principle at the center of his teaching, is the middle way, not the path of deprivation, not the path of excess, the path that honors what the body truly needs, without the noise of what the ego wishes it could still demand. Think of two trees in wind. One stands rigid, strong, resistant, immovable. When the storm comes hard enough, it breaks. The other has learned to bend not from weakness, but from a deeper rootedness that allows movement without loss of ground. The bending tree survives storms that shatter the rigid one, and it does so not through force, but through a suppleness that took years to develop. Your body, at this stage of life, has the opportunity to become the second tree. A daily walk taken slowly and with attention, gentle stretching in the morning before the day claims the body's first energy, movement that brings you into relationship with your physical self rather than performance for some external standard. These are not consolation prizes for what you used to be able to do. They are sophisticated practices, more sophisticated in many ways than the intensity of younger years, because they require presence rather than just effort. Move every day. Move gently. Move as an act of gratitude for a body that has carried you through everything so far and is asking, simply, to be treated with the same care you would offer someone you love. You do not have to earn your body back through suffering. Gentleness is not giving up. It is finally growing wise. Teaching 8 breath is the bridge between the life you are living and the life you could be living. Of all 10 teachings, this is the simplest and possibly the most neglected. You are breathing right now. You have been breathing your entire life. And yet if you bring your attention to it in this moment, you may notice that the breath is shallow, that it barely reaches the belly, that it is doing the minimum required and no more. This is how most of us breathe most of the time, not badly enough to notice, not fully enough to truly nourish. The Anapanasati Sutta, the Buddha's teaching on mindfulness of breathing, is one of the most complete and detailed teachings in the entire Buddhist canon. Not as a preliminary practice, not as a warm-up for something more important. The breath itself, attended to with full presence, was described by the Buddha as a complete path, a path that, followed with consistency and care, leads through the body into the mind, through the mind into the heart, and through the heart into a quality of peace that does not depend on circumstances. This is extraordinary when you consider what breath actually is. It is the one function of the autonomic nervous system, the system that runs your heartbeat, your digestion, your immune response, that you can consciously control. Everything else happens without your permission, but the breath will follow your lead. And because the breath connects directly to the nervous system, when you slow it down, the nervous system follows. When you deepen it, the body receives a signal it has been waiting for. There is no emergency. You can rest. You are safe. Most people breathe the way they live, shallowly, quickly, from the chest, doing just enough to keep going, and the body receives the corresponding signal. We are always almost in danger. Stay alert. Do not fully relax. 3 times today: morning, midday, evening. Stop whatever you are doing. Not for long. 5 slow breaths. Inhale through the nose, counting to 4. Hold for a moment at the top. Exhale slowly, counting to 6. Feel the exhale longer than the inhale, because the exhale is where the nervous system finally releases. Do this without expectation, without grading yourself. Simply arrive in the breath 3 times as a daily practice of returning. The breath was always there, waiting. You simply needed to come home to it. Teaching 9. You were not meant to live this alone. Buddhism teaches that connection is not a comfort, it is a condition. We speak often about individual practice, the meditation cushion, the personal inquiry, the journey inward, and all of these matter deeply. But the Buddha was equally clear about something that is easy to overlook in the age of self-help and individual optimization. We do not heal in isolation. We heal in relationship. He called it kalyanamita, noble friendship, and he said it was not half of the spiritual life, it was the whole of it. We walk the path not despite each other, but because of each other. We see ourselves most clearly in the eyes of someone who genuinely knows us. We find the courage to change when we are held by people who believe change is possible. Many people arrive at this stage of life with fewer close connections than they expected. It is not always dramatic, no single loss, no clear moment of rupture. It is more like a slow thinning, the friendships that required effort and eventually received less and less of it. The conversations that became shallower because everyone was tired. The habit of saying fine and busy until saying anything more felt like too much to ask of anyone, including yourself. And underneath all the managing and the functioning, a loneliness that is hard to name because you are not technically alone. You are simply not fully seen. When did you last sit with someone and feel genuinely known, not managed, not entertained, not given advice, but simply met? When did you last speak what was actually true in you, rather than what was easy or expected? When did you last let someone care for you, not fix you, not solve anything, just be present with you in what was real? These are not small questions. These are questions about the quality of the life you are actually living. One genuine connection this week, not a text message that takes 10 seconds to compose. A voice, a face, a conversation that moves past the surface and goes somewhere that matters. With a friend, a family member, a neighbor you have been meaning to call. With someone who knows your name and would notice if you disappeared. The longest life is not always the fullest life, but a life held within genuine human connection, tended, imperfect, real, tends toward both. Choose the people who help you remember who you are, and let them. Teaching 10. A clean heart and a quiet enough soul. This is where everything leads. Every teaching we have walked through today, the mind's need for rest, the body's wisdom, the grief that asks to be honored, the breath, the connection, the gentleness, all of it leads here, to the heart. Buddhism ends where it began, with the quality of what you carry inside. There is a teaching in the oldest Buddhist texts, a conversation between an emperor and his counselor, in which the emperor asked the question that every human being eventually asks in some form: what is the secret to a long life, to a life without unnecessary suffering, to arriving at the end with the body and the spirit still intact? And the counselor, after a long silence, gave an answer so simple it has puzzled scholars and comforted ordinary people for 2,000 years. A clean heart and few desires, not the absence of desire, not the renunciation of everything that matters. Few desires, the ones that are genuinely yours, that genuinely serve your life, that do not require the constant exhausting machinery of grasping and proving and competing and accumulating. And a clean heart, not a heart that has never been broken. Every heart that has loved anything has been broken, but a heart that has been broken and has not hardened. A heart that has been betrayed and has not made bitterness its permanent residence. A heart that has lost and grieved and eventually through patience and practice and perhaps some grace learned to open again. The people who seem to carry their years most lightly are not the ones who have suffered least. Often they are the ones who have suffered considerably and who, at some point, made the quiet decision to stop letting the past determine the temperature of the present. They let things go, not because they didn't matter, but because the holding was costing more than they could afford, and there was still life left to live. What are you still holding that you no longer need to hold? Not as a demand, as an honest question, offered gently. One thing, perhaps something you have been carrying for years, a resentment, a version of yourself you keep trying to defend. An old story about what you deserve or do not deserve, or what is still possible for someone at your age. You do not have to release it dramatically tonight. You only need to name it, to see it clearly, and to just begin the long, patient, deeply human work of setting it down. A clean heart is not one that has never been broken. It is one that has been broken and healed and learned not to hast. Today, you walked with 10 teachings that Buddhism has carried for more than 2,000 years. Not as doctrine, not as religion, as a quiet and radical invitation to live differently, to inhabit your body rather than drive it, to rest without earning it, to nourish yourself in every sense of that word, to let what has been held for too long finally be acknowledged, to move gently, to breathe fully, to reach toward the people who help you remember yourself, and to arrive slowly, imperfectly, beautifully, at a heart that is not carrying more than it needs to. These teachings are not asking you to become someone new. They are asking you to return to something you already know, something beneath the decades of managing and enduring and being strong, something that has been waiting patiently for you to slow down long enough to find it again. There is only one question left now. The question is whether today, not tomorrow, not when things are more settled, not when you have more time, you will choose one small act that says, I am still here. My life still matters, and I still have time. One breath taken slowly, one night of genuine rest, one conversation that goes somewhere real, one grief finally allowed to be true. Choose one. Begin there. Tell me in the comments, which of these 10 teachings felt most like something you already knew but needed to hear again? Your words may be exactly what someone else needed to read today. If these words found you at the right moment, stay, subscribe. We walk this path together slowly, gently, without rushing toward the end. And remember, you were not given this life to spend it at war with yourself. You were given it to live fully, quietly, and well.